Hey everyone, Ian here. It's been a while since we've done a featured extra segment here on Kicking the Seat, and I figured it's time to get back into it. And what better occasion than a look at the 4K release from Warner Brothers of one of the year's most anticipated films of the year. Didn't quite turn out as to be as big a blockbuster as folks had anticipated, but we still have to contend with James Gunn's Superman on 4K. Now, if you notice, it's got a cool lenticular cover here. You can see it. Maybe you can see it here, changing from Clark to Superman. I am a fan of gimmick covers. It kind of reminds me of the gimmick comic book covers that were prevalent back in the '90s and which seem to be making a resurgence today. Everything from foil holographic logos to, frankly, lenticular covers. But we're not here to talk about that today specifically. We're going to dive into one extra feature on this disc. Now, there are several featurettes on the movie. A lot of them of the kind of the shorter variety, a lot of kind of electronic press kit and press junket interviewee type things. But there is a quite extensive, sort of, hour-long documentary called Adventures in the Making of Superman, which, as you might expect, chronicles James Gunn's journey from sort of conceiving the idea for this film all the way up through wrapping the picture. Now, what's fascinating about this is you could watch this making of without having seen James Gunn's Superman and then go watch James Gunn's Superman and wonder what the hell movie were they talking about in that making of? Because I look, I famously did not like 2025's Superman by James Gunn, so much so that I vowed that I will not be watching any more of these DC movies until James Gunn steps down, and I stand by that. Temptation is there because I love a good old train wreck, but I am so not a fan of his vision for where these characters are going after the Snyderverse and previous incarnations that we've seen that, yeah, I'm just not going to put myself through it. But watching this making of doc, it shows that, well, at least it shows a side of Gunn that is committed to the material. It really makes a hero of David Cornsweet, who plays our titular Man of Steel, off screen, although he's on screen because he's being recorded for this documentary, but shows how much he is committed to this part and to creating an iconic version of the Man of Steel. Rachel Brosnahan comes off very well in here. We get a little bit of Nicholas Hoult, but it's mostly the Cornsweet and Gunn show. Sounds kind of funny. Everything from the glasses tests, where they're trying on the different pairs of the costumer said that we're trying on 1,000 different pairs of glasses to get the right Clark Kent look, to the presentation of the S, the stitching on the logo on his chest and on his cape. It's all very painstaking, and I was surprised by the amount of practicality that was involved in putting this film together. It's tempting to watch a blockbuster Hollywood movie in 2025 and think, oh, this is all CG. But there was an insane amount of practical sets, even some of the Superman robots in the Fortress of Solitude. Yes, they had Alan Tudyk in a crazy elaborate mocap suit that would be, the robot helper would be grafted on in post-production, but we also did have a full-size animatronic droid that James Gunn was kind of interacting with on the set, which was kind of fun. Plus the Fortress of Solitude was pretty cool to behold. Beth Mickle was the production designer, and funnily enough, she worked with James Gunn on Guardians of the Galaxy and with Francis Ford Coppola on Megalopolis before she was summarily fired. I can't remember if she fired or she stepped down, and the rest of the production design staff walked with her, which was covered in MEGADOC, Mike Figgis's movie about the making of Megalopolis, which you can watch my review with David Fowley elsewhere on Kicking the Seat. I'll actually leave a link there below. So it's just a coincidence that within 1 week, we're talking about the same production designer for two very different movies, unified only in the painstaking physicality of the craft that she brought to helping to realize this vision. I mean, when there's a whole stretch where they go into the construction of those giant crystal pillars that make up the Fortress of Solitude and what it took to make those things. Yeah, it's great. And I really came out of this documentary wishing that I loved the movie that it was about, the making of, more than I did. But what I alluded to at the beginning of this message is they leave out all of the goofiness, all of the James Gunn humor and Gunnisms that are to be found in Superman 2025 in the making of this documentary. The scenes they cover tend to be the ones that are the most earnest, the most fraught with real emotional character drama, be it the fight between Lois and Clark in the apartment, or the kind of the homestead scene with Pa Kent and Clark, to the dramatic blow up between Lex and Superman at the end of the film, which, even though it's kind of goofy in the end result, they really did put a lot of time, effort, and thought into crafting that scene. And one of the most fascinating bits of this mini documentary is James Gunn and David Cornsweet kind of coming to not exactly blows, although Gunn did put his hands on Cornsweet, which was really interesting, over their interpretation of how Clark Kent slash Superman would react to being called an alien by Lex Luthor at this point in the story, after he's received the affirmation from his Earth father that he is as every bit a human being as anybody else, as even Lex Luthor. Um, I liked Cornsweet's interpretation of how that scene should play out, and I feel like if that had been what we saw in the final product, it wouldn't have won me over for the rest of the film, but at least would have uh, given me a little bit of what I was looking for in this interpretation, which I thought was overly emotional, overly goofy, and just not very Superman at all. It did give me a little bit of hope that someday I'll be able to revisit whatever this series becomes, probably decades from now, and see a Corn Sweat that was able to step into this role and really elevate it in future films. Because, man, someone who cares about the character of Superman as much as he does, I mean, you'd have to go back to, I imagine, Christopher Reeve. Not to say that Henry Cavill didn't care about the character. He is famously a geek, but that you just really feel the warmth and the earnestness coming off of Corn Sweat as he talks deeply about this character. So there's the one other thing I'll say is, James Gunn. It's no secret that Crypto the dog was sort of his way into cracking the story. He had famously said in an interview, a long time ago, that he didn't have any stories to tell about Superman because he didn't find him to be interesting. But apparently, in thinking about his deceased dog, he was able to say, "What if this dog, or any dog, because he loves dogs. There's dogs all over this documentary. It gets to be a bit annoying. It's like, yeah, I get it. You love dogs, but this is obnoxious. This is like going into a restaurant or being on an airplane and seeing people, with their dogs running around and knowing that they're not service animals." Anyway, uh, the dogs in this film, James Gunn imagined, or I guess the dogs in his life, he imagined, what if they were, what is it, the exact quote? What if this awful, terrible, maniac dog also had superpowers? And that was his key to cracking Superman. That's the one sort of indication, the one idiosyncrasy in watching this documentary where you're thinking, wait a second. The rest of this film, from what I'm being presented here in this doc, seems pretty serious, but then he's talking about a dog with superpowers. What could that be about? And then you watch the finished film and you see, oh, that's really what he's interested in. And the rest of the characters and their half fulfilled story arcs kind of feeds off of this idea of a crazy maniacal dog, metaphorically and literally chasing its tail for 2 hours. Um, I'm not here to rehash Superman 2025, although I guess I kind of am. I am here to say that whatever you feel about the movie itself, there is a reason to go and pick up this 4K. Again, besides the lenticular cover, ooh, nice and shiny object filmmaking. That's what we love here on Kicking the Seat. It is to watch this documentary because it is fascinating. It's almost you can get a degree in armchair psychology by watching this thing, and also an appreciation for what went into making the movie, even if, like me, you didn't appreciate how things ended up, and in fact are on a very reluctant and heartbreaking boycott of all future DC films. And TV shows. I'm not going to watch that Peacemaker nonsense either until Mr. Gunn is no more at the company. Um, One of the other things, it's telling that Gunn was commenting on the fight between Lois and Clark in that apartment, where she was taking him to task for Superman having intervened in an international conflict. And Lois rightfully said, "You didn't consult anyone, you didn't talk to any world governments, you just went in and started busting heads and actually threatening the head of a sovereign country whom you didn't happen to agree with." And Superman said, "Well, people are going to die," the famous kind of whining, screeching line that's in the trailers. Um, and Gunn came out and said, "I'm on Clark's side of this argument." And he says, "Clark is not thinking about the ramifications or the bigger picture." And my eyebrows were at full arch perch when he said that, because I thought, based on what I'm seeing of James Gunn's vision for the DC universe moving forward, that seems to be exactly what he is in the process of acting out. And probably in 10 years, people are going to look back on whatever monstrosities have come of this. And I hope I'm wrong, because I don't like to see people have to sit through hours and hours and hours of crap, much less myself, hence the boycott, and just be disappointed. But it looks like that's where we're heading. The final thing I'll say is Peter Safran, who's the other head of DC, who's running things over there, the DCU version, division of Warner Brothers, I should say. Um, he's more the business guy, and Gunn is the creative guy. But Peter Safran has been a lifelong fan of Superman ever since seeing the original film in 1978. And to hear him tell it, he wanted to make a Superman movie ever since seeing Christopher Reeve, up on that screen. He wanted to tell a story in that world. And so James Gunn, at one point, when he's talking about how he came into the project, he said, "I'm not here because of my dreams. I'm here because of Peter Safran's dreams." And boy, does it show. Anyway, I'm done ranting. Watch the doc for yourself, which you can do by picking up the Blu-ray, which is, well, it's the Blu-ray and the 4K. Sorry, it's the 4K UHD and all that stuff, and it's streaming now, and I think you can watch it on HBO Max. But the documentary, I don't believe, is on HBO Max. The other thing I'll say, the other thing, as I wind down, I'm not scripted here. I know it's amazing. Uh, One of the other features that's going to be coming out for this release, that's not part of the physical disc, it's something that I haven't really seen before, is there's going to be an audio commentary by James Gunn that's coming out on digital. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to purchase this separately, or if it's a matter of you buy the 4K or the digital copy, or redeem the digital copy that comes with the 4K, and then someday this commentary will just show up in your video library, and then you can listen to it or watch the film along with it. But that's fascinating to me. That was the real draw, the reason that I wanted to check out this release. Unfortunately, it's not part of the release yet, and all the information I can find just says it's coming soon. So maybe I'll do a follow-up episode dissecting, again with my armchair psychology, film critic style, that commentary, and see what other gems I can unearth about the origins and execution of this unfortunate production. But yeah, so that's all to say. Thank you very much for hanging out and watching this brief featured extras segment, as unstructured and rambling as it is. If you have purchased this release and you watch the documentary and you like it or you hate it, or you disagree with what I have to say, or you're thinking, right on, what were they thinking? Please leave a comment down below and let's talk about it. If you love Superman and hated this documentary, or if you love Superman, you love the documentary, again, leave your comments down below. Basically, comment. Let's engage in a conversation. I don't like being the nitpicking stick in the mud who hates all modern movies, but here we are. And sometimes the passion and the intellect of the fans, not only my fans, but fans of DC and Marvel and all these other properties I'm constantly ragging on, you make some good points. And sometimes you compel me to mellow out a little bit, or at least reconsider some of my staunch positions. And I love that. It's what we're here for. It's for a dialogue, not a monologue, although what you're listening to now is essentially a monologue. So I'm going to stop monologuing, James Bond villain style, and get out of here. So yeah, thank you. If you like this or you hated it, whatever, please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, comment down below, and be sure and pick up this release, because whatever you think of the movie, there's a hell of a doc on there that's worth checking out. So until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care. Hey everyone, Ian here. I know, long time no see. But if you like the video you just watched, feel free to subscribe to Kicking the Seat right here, and also check out the playlist and recommended video right here. Thanks for watching.